Okay, great. So the recording is on. Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Edge series. Um, it's a series or is a monthly edition which focuses on supporting digital entrepreneurs and digital professionals in staying ahead in the digital world. Here we explore latest trends, apps, technologies, and we also explore how they can keep the edge in the evolving digital world. So this series is part of Legacy Labs um, innovation initiative, and today our topic is building a strong personal brand in the digital era. And to share insight with us today is Toluwa Share Oludemiro, Manager, Block Communications. He's a seasoned uh, brand communication expert, and I'm sure that we're going to have a great deal with him. So without further ado, over to you, Mr. Mr. Tolu, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Friendly. Um, so, firstly, I would like to say a very big thank you to Legacy Lab and Mr. Femi for this opportunity. I do not take it for granted. Is just to check again. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. Apologies for my video not being turned on. It was turned in a few minutes ago. Nigeria happens where I am. So, and the backup generator is not yet up. So up until that time, I hope it happens very quickly. But probably because of the rain, it might take a while. But if you can hear me, I know we'd make the best out of this session. Without further ado, my name is Tolu Ashe Olivimiru. I manage communications at Block, community and communications at Block. Block is a uh, Block is a Nigerian-based startup offering banking as a service solution to businesses across the world. Right. Aside that, I manage communications for two other startups in Nigeria, which have given me the privilege to learn and both apply for communication strategy across board. And I've been able to build experience in that sense since the start of my career. It's a very great pleasure to be sharing what I've learned with this audience. So I'm going to be asking a few questions. I would like about 2-3 persons to just unmute their mics and get to tell me a bit about themselves. And for the rest of us, if you would not be unmuting your mic to share, please you can just drop your name, what you do, and where you are listening from on the chat box. So you could just start with that. I'm going to mention names. So Tomo Grace, please, I would love for you to unmute and talk about yourself. I hope I pronounced this name properly. Awele Ukudarue. Please, after Grace, I would want you to also join in, like get to talk about yourself. And I think the final person, let me go through would be Titilayo Ali. All right, Tomo Grace, please. indulge me.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, house. Hello,
Yeah, good
can
evening,
you
Tom.
all hear me?
Yeah, good.
My name is Tomo Grace. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. Hi, Grace. Are you still here? All right. Since we lost her for a bit, again, I hope I pronounce it right. Awele, is it Awele or Awele? Awele Kudarue, please, you could just pick it up again.
Yes, you pronounced the name right. My name is Awele Okudare. You tried also in the surname, Awele Okudare. Good evening, everyone. I'm Awele Okudare. I have experience in personal assistance, admin, and I have a background in fashion as well. I ventured into tech last year as a community manager. I'm a certified community manager, and I have been on a journey of personal branding this year. I have taken my personal branding seriously this year, and I saw this opportunity for this meet, and I decided to join in so that I can learn how to better brand myself personally in the tech space. I am joining in from Lagos, Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Awele. Uh, then I think the last person is Alim. Is Alim still here? Oh, Alim, yes, this is like Alim.
Hello, good evening. Apologies for any background noise you may hear. My name is Aline Joy, and I have a background in administration. Actually, I ventured from paramedical health space into administration and project management. So that's what I do presently. Of course, I have other interests in other sector, but here we are. I'm a project manager currently.
All right. Thank you so much, Awele. Thank you so much, Joy. And thank you, Grace. I think maybe network happens to her. All right. Like I earlier mentioned, for the rest of us, we could just do the same in the chat section so that we know that you're all following. I would have loved to take the introductions round, but I can't. It's totally coincidental that the three people I called were female. Please, for the men on the call, please, do not be offended. All right. So today we're going to be talking about building a digital brand and or building a personal brand, building a strong personal brand in the digital era. And we're basically going to go through what a brand is, what branding is, and how branding is done in the digital age. And I'm going to be sharing a tool that you could use to build a consistent and very solidified personal brand. And we'll take questions and we'll call it a day if that's fine. Right. Hi, Tomo. Grace, you're welcome. If you just complete the introductions on the chat window. Nobody is using the chat, Ali. All right, that's fine. All right, let's push. the concept of branding in itself, when you talk about branding, before you can say you want to build a strong personal brand, you first have to understand the fact that, or you first have to understand what a brand is in itself and what branding as a whole entail. So to define a brand, I'm just going to use a very simple term. To define a brand, a brand is a living entity that lives in the mind of your audience. So it's a living entity, it's something that is alive. Other people could define a other people can define, or I don't have an audience, or so how come there's something about me living in the minds of other people? Now, the fact that for every person that exists, one thing that is consistent is the fact that you have a perception that has been formed in the minds of people concerning you. I'm going to use an example that someone shared a time past, that when a child is born, and the child begin to give the child and begin to form a perception for the child. So you begin to hear things like, oh, this child looks like his mother. Look at this child's eyes. He looks like that of the father. That is already building a perception in the mind of both the child and in the mind of even both the mother, who's like both the mother of the child in that instance. So even if the mother did not have like any initial thoughts concerning the child, the moment someone comes and say, the baby has its father's eyes, immediately there's a perception that is already being formed in the mind of the woman. They're like, really? Our father's eyes, let me even check. Is it true? So that is the perception being formed concerning that child. And for the rest of the child's life, the child is going to needs to work to, in that case, either whatever the child does would be to solidify or weaken that perception that people has of him or her in their minds. So that's like, and that's a simple scenario to explain the fact that everybody has a brand, and that people, whether you like it or not, have a perception of who you are in their minds. So because today our focus is on personal brand, I'm not going to dabble into how, I'm not going to talk about the business standpoint of this, or how branding affects business, but maybe close to the end. And if there are questions that tailor us towards that direction, I'm going to also share how having a strong personal brand can also aid the growth of your business, either as a startup founder, or as an entrepreneur, or as an employee in a company. But yeah, that's what a brand is. So a brand is a living entity that lives in the mind of your audience, and your audience basically people around you, people you engage and interact with. Everyone you've ever engaged with, they have a perception of you. Right now, in the minds of everyone on this call, a perception is being built concerning who Toluwaseun Olugbemiru is, probably from the way I speak, from the fact that I didn't turn on my video, from the fact that I'm a Nigerian, or from the fact that I talked about the places that I've worked and the things I do. before we started the call, from the way I engaged the call and how I asked people to talk about themselves before the call. All of these things contribute to the perception that you have of me in your mind. And even if you didn't have any, because I just mentioned it's a perception, you begin to think around it. So and that's the strength of, or that's like that simple illustration explains the fact we all have a brand, and in ourselves, our very existence is a proof that we have a brand. So then, if each and every one of us have a brand, what is branding? Please, if you have questions, you could take them down or you could drop them in the chat section. And if at any point you can't hear me, you just either raise your hand or drop a message in the group on the chat section that you can't hear me. Now, what is branding? Branding is all that you do that influences that perception people have of you, either positively or negatively. So anything you do, right, either works in your favor or against you, that's towards either strengthening or solidifying the perception people have of you. Now, where branding becomes effective is when you are conscious of the perception that you want people to have of you. I'm going to repeat that. Where branding becomes effective is when you are conscious of the perception that you want people to have of you. So an example, so I'm going to be using examples of personal brands out there that we might be able to relate to it. Now, an example would be or a glass or something of sort that he wears on his eyes. Hello, are we here?
Yes, we are here. Sorry, we lost you for a minute. Probably you could take that example again, please.
All right. So an example we want to talk about is Victor Osimhen, who is a footballer. Now he has a mask on his eyes that is something he wears on his face, right? That sort of differentiates him from every other footballer out there. Even there was a time I didn't even know who he was, but I was watching a football match and I saw a player have like that mask on his face. I'm like, who is this? Who is this guy? Right? And eventually I got to find out many years later, that that guy that I saw those many years, it was actually Victor Osimhen. Now, one consistent thing happened. He continued wearing that face gear throughout his career, and yes, he's still wearing it. So it made it easy for me to recognize that, this was the person I saw 2-3 years ago in a football match. And I'm not even an avid fan of football. There is I have someone who is a startup founder, a businessman, who for every event he goes to, for every event he attends, he's always on native. He's always on native, and he when you interact with him, he pitches himself. He tells you that I am the you are not going to picture him in a suit. You're not going to picture him in a you're not going to picture him in a suit. You possibly picture him in native. And when you would want to describe him, you say, that speaker that wore blue senator or that speaker that wore so color of native. But what he has consistently done is to wear native. Now, as I mentioned earlier, branding is all that you do that influence. Sorry, you lost me for a bit again, right?
Yes, yes, we do. You said branding is all that we do that influence.
Next up, as an individual, you can be conscious of what you want people to think about you, right? As an individual, you can be conscious of what you want people to think. Um, you can be conscious of what you want people to think about you. All right, are we following?
Yes, please.
Yes. And when you become conscious of what you want people to think about you, right, you can now begin to make deliberate efforts to strengthen that perception, or to further build that perception in the minds of people. Now, because of the time that we are in, when a time where technology is very rampant and widely adopted, um, it then means that we are sort of required. It's not a written law, but it's sort of like an unspoken rule that you are sort of required in some way to leverage technology to build your personal brand. Right now, what would we define as a personal brand is you being aware of the perception you want people to have of you, and then working towards strengthening that perception, right? So you're aware of the perception you want people to have of you, and you're working consciously to strengthen that perception. Now, are there people who exist who do not leverage technology to build their personal brand? In this age, no, they don't. Right? We might have people who are not key, or who are not key, or who do not rely heavily on social media. But would one thing we would pay attention to is that people interact with technology every day, and in one way or the other, people leverage technology to build that perception, or to build and strengthen that perception in the minds of people. Now, what I want us to not do is to streamline our focus or our thought process to think that um, building a personal brand with technology or in the digital age primarily has to do with social media. No, that is not it, right? Social media is just one of the tools of technology that enables us to build a personal brand in a digital age. It is not the only tool. Can you build a strong personal brand without heavily using social media? Yes, you can. Now, it will depend on what exactly you want to achieve in the minds of your audience, and who the audience that you are targeting. So if you're someone who wants to build a global brand, if you're someone who wants people to know you all over the place, right? How you use social media might be a thing to consider, right? Now, if you're someone who you are convenient with building a perception, um, 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 what's the word, locally, you can also leverage that. Now, an there's an author of a very popular book, which is Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling, and she's someone who is who is almost non-existent on social media. Now, when I mean almost non-existent, she has a social media account, She has all of this stuff, but for, for a better part of her life, she was neither active nor even. I think for a better part of her life, she didn't even have social media accounts. Like, but what she did, she started writing a book, and she invested her time and her efforts into the book, and published the book. Now, how she published the book was through technology. Now, when people engage with her content, which is her book, um, a perception of her is built in them. Now, people knew of her way before they even saw her, right? And some of us here might have even interacted with the movie Harry Potter or the book Harry Potter without even knowing who the author is. But when you watch the movie and when you read the book, for those of us that have read the book, there's a perception that you had in your mind, either concerning the author that came up with this particular content. So now, which will take me to the tool that I want to share with us on how to build a personal brand. Now, one of the most powerful tools a person can use to build a personal brand is stories. So, as ridiculous as that sounds, but it's the most powerful tool that you can use to build a personal brand is stories. Now, a lot of us here have stories that were told to us. I grew up in the South, and there's this thing that we were told while I was growing up, that if you break palm kernel in the night, that evil spirit will come and slap you. Right? And we were told many other stories like that. If you whistle in the night, demon will pursue you. Something. We had very a lot of things that we were told that strengthened the power of the beliefs that were in the region I grew up in. Now, this is a lot of years from the first time I heard those things, but I still remember them very well. There was a time I actually wanted to crack a palm kernel nut in the night, and it just came back to me. I told you, and like I've lived, and for someone like me, I would assume that, or I would boldly and even confidently tell you that, this thing is superstition and everything. But as I wanted to try it, it just came back to me that, Tolu, if you break this thing in the night, evil spirit is going to come outside and slap you. And I hesitated. Like, I had to sit down and think it through and remind myself that, I'm a Christian. The power of God is here and all of those things. Before I even went ahead to like break the palm kernel nut. But that's the power of a story that was told to me. Now, what stories do to us is because I'm going to just mention this by the way. The human brain. This is like what I'm going to say now is born out of scientific research, right? And so what we've been made to understand is that the human brain is the most primitive part of the human anatomy, right? And what this means is that even after years, this according to science, even after years of scientific, development, right? Even after years of evolution, the human brain is still very, very primitive, meaning that how it was trained at the start of human evolution is still pretty much how it can still be trained in this time. So the human brain, which is like by extension the human mind, is very instinctive, and how information for most of us, when you tell someone something, he visualizes it in his mind. So if you speak in words, the person visualizes those words and sort of forms scenarios with those words to help him remember what you said. So in itself, when the mind wants to remember a particular concept, it's it it weaves that memory into what we can call stories to make it easier for the person to remember. So, and that's how the mind remembers, or yes, that's how memory works. So, words, concepts, ideologies, numbers, all of these things are weaved into scenarios, which we can just term as stories. So, the human mind works best when it is told a story. And why are stories powerful? Because they bypass logic, they bypass human reasoning, and that's why when I was younger and I watched Superman for the first time, I tied a towel around my neck and I was jumping from chair to chair and jumping on my father's bed that I am a superhero. And I know like thousands of children around the world did the exact same thing because what happened? We were told the story. So what right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. What was the last thing you heard?
It's about the Superman, you putting on a cape, using a towel as a cape.
All right. So we would find out that um right, sorry, something interrupted my network. We'll find out that even when some of us watched Spider-Man, we went to go and start looking for spiders to put in our hands so that they'll bite us and that will become a superhero. That's not logical, that's dangerous, right? But stories bypass logic and they plant a narrative in our minds. Now, um, you now begin to ask yourself, but I am not a storyteller. I don't know how to tell stories. So how do I use stories to build a personal brand? Now, stories comprise of a few things, right? There's a main character, there is a plot, and there is either a challenge or something that the main character wants to achieve. In your story, you are the main character. The plot is your life. The challenges are the challenges that you face are the things that you want to surmount or the things that you want to overcome. Now, it's simple. If now, depending on how I want to build my personal brand, if I want to build my personal brand leveraging social media, what will I do? I can decide on a routine where I get to share a part of my struggles. Now, when I mean a part of my struggles, it's not like I'll come and tell them that today a car almost hits me. And some people do that, right? Or tomorrow, I'm hungry. I drank Gary. If some people also do that. Again, it's that you are remember we started from you are conscious of what you want to tell your audience, what you want your audience to believe of you, and then you begin to do things that will strengthen that ideology or that perception. Do you understand? Right. So it's how you tell your story is dependent on what you want your audience to get or believe, right? And the reason I'll give a very loose illustration. The reason our parents would tell us of maybe why we should that they want to achieve is that we are safe, right? So what do? they would tell us stories of things that have happened to people who work late in the night, and that would keep us. So over time, if we continually believe it, we'll find out that we would have built a culture of not working late at night. So the only reason that this might now change is if a stronger narrative comes and counters that perception that we've built over time. Right. So what we can do. So like I mentioned, you are the main character of your story, right? So what you want people to believe of you, know it. Possibly you can even write it down, right? And say, okay, in the next 5, 10 years, this is what I want people to know me for. And then you begin to work every day towards it. So if you want, what Awele said that she was a personal assistant, right? And Alim said she transitioned from being a paramedic to being a project manager. Now, possibly in Joy's area, everybody knows her as nurse or doctor or a medical personnel, right? If you want to change that narrative, she might decide that, okay, before people used to see me on white clothes like nurse uniform. So for the next 1 year, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go and invest in buying maybe smart clothes or maybe skirt and blouse or trousers and shirts, and I would have like a bag, a very smart bag that if I wear this consistently, people start calling me Oga Madam, or people start asking me, are you no longer doing nothing? And you tell her that you're a project manager. Now, some people might not even understand what a project manager is, but if they see you on the other, maybe after 3 months, they might start calling, Madam Manager or Oga Manager. So what you are doing is that you consciously changed the way you dressed so that people would shift their mind from how they viewed you as a paramedic now to a project manager. Now, if you want to replicate this same perception online, you might tilt away from you can maybe one day tell them a story of how you transitioned from the medical line to being a project manager. So I have a friend who is a designer. He was a medical doctor, he went to study medicine and he dropped out. He dropped out of school to pursue his design career. And, one of the things he has done consistently at the start of his career was to begin to tell his story about why he dropped out of medical school and pursue a career in design. So what that did for him, it built a perception that this person knows what he's doing, right? He's not dull. For someone to want to study medicine, you know that this person was at some point had that intention, clear intention and the person who had the brains to match it, right? So he consistently told his story of how he transitioned or how he dropped out of school or how he picked up design during at a point in time in his life, and he was trying to balance it with schooling, but the demands of school was high, and then he just sat one day and just thought about it and made the decision. Now it sounds sweet in my mouth, but you know that the decisions he would have to make and the challenges he would have to face to solidify the perception that he wanted people to believe of him or to have of him would have been his own struggles to bear, right? So building a personal brand is basically living your life, and not just living your life, but being conscious of the way you want people to perceive you. As I begin to round up, I'm going to make I want to be careful to make an emphasis that you are, again, the fact that you're living your life, you're not living it for people in that sense. So you can consciously determine that this is the narrative that I want people to know me by. Now, and you begin to walk towards it. Now, you must also realize that not everybody is your audience. Not everybody would like you. Not everybody would commend you for the decisions that you have made in building a strong personal brand, right? I have another friend who left school to become a software engineer. His parents were not in support. A lot of people were not in support of that decision. But again, back to the beginning, he knew the perception he wanted people to have of him. And now when people think of him, they think of someone that is very resilient. They think of someone that has grit. No, but initially, what they described that resilience as was stubbornness. And the fact that maybe someone has bewitched him. Yes, we're in Nigeria. That can also come into play. So, but what he wanted to communicate to people is the fact that he was resilient and that he had grit and that he was conscious about taking charge of his life. So now when people describe him, even his parents, they'll tell you that, XYZ is a very resilient person. We can trust him that he can go the extra mile to get things done. Now that's a perception that he has created for himself, right? So, and there are people who might also consider his decisions in life as foolish. Remember that you are not building a personal brand for everybody. Come on, even the most popular people in the world right now, not everybody likes them. Not everybody likes Bill Gates. Not everybody likes Elon Musk. Not everybody likes Cristiano Ronaldo. Not everyone likes Messi, right? Not everyone likes JJ Okocha. Not everyone even likes Jesus Christ, right? And these are the most influential and some of the most strongest personal brands in the world. Yes, Jesus Christ is an example of a personal brand. But I would hang my boots here and open the floor for questions. So I'm going to look through the chat section and answer the questions that are there, and while we give room for more questions. So there's a question here: how can one build a personal brand with diverse careers that picks out one thing from each and make it unified? All right. So to answer this question, the unifying factor when someone has like a diverse career, the unifying factor is actually that individual. So you are the unifying factor. An example, I design, right? I design, I can talk, I can write, and I do brand strategy. And I can also run, like I'm an athlete, and right, all of these things were things that were prominent in my life at some point in time, right? And different people know me for different things, right? But when I began my career, at some point I decided that I want to be known for just one thing. So you can decide to pick one and make that the dominant narrative, right? This is what people should know me by, right? An example, right? Jesus was a carpenter, right? But there was one thing he wanted people to know him for, which is for the preaching of the gospel, right? For the preaching of the kingdom of God, which is the gospel. That's an example. So you can today, Cristiano Ronaldo is a footballer, but he has a wristwatch brand. He has a wristwatch brand. He has an underwear brand. He has recently he launched his startup, right, that sells water, right? So, but what you know him as is the footballer. An example, Rihanna is a musician, but in the last, for how many years now, she has not sang one song. She has a perfume brand. That's what. So you know her as a musician, but what she's actually selling, she's a businesswoman that just does music. Right. So the unifying factor is that individual in the middle of all of those things, and this is how you can use your personal brand to propagate your business. So you can have one thing that you are known for, and because of the strength of that personal brand, when you delve into other things or when you talk about other things to other people, because of the trust you built over time, with your personal brand, people would easily just, oh, this person does this. Oh, let me even check it out. Oh, if for example, like Cristiano Ronaldo is a footballer, he says, oh, this is the boxers I wear. His fans will go and, oh, this is the boxers that Cristiano Ronaldo wear. Let me check it. Why does he wear this type of boxers? It's not even fine. And let me buy it. Let me see how it looks like. But he's already pushing his business. Like people that hate him will even buy it and be like, this is what is not even comfortable. No one that used to run anyhow, but he's pushing his business, right? And what is this? What is that strong thing that is pushing and driving his other interests? It's his personal brand. I hope I've been able to answer the question, and I hope this session has been as informative as you'd have wanted it to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tolulubelo. Well, I think that was your question, if I'm right. Was it answered? Do you have a follow-up question? Does anyone have a question before we wrap up?
Yes, that was my question, and I don't know if Soluwaseun can touch more on the question. Like, I'm a personal assistant, a community manager. I'm also a fashion stylist. And what can I pick from each of these careers of mine that can make it a unified brand? I don't know if you get me. What can I pick from each of these careers that I do? That I speak about my personal brand out there. Each of the careers is represented. Thank you.
All right. So, what can you pick out of each of them? The common factor in all of them is you, right? You are a personal assistant that does community management. The common factor in both community management as a career and personal assistance as a career path also is you. So you can introduce yourself as, oh, my name is Awele, right? My name is Awele.
Yes.
I manage communities for a living, but I also help people manage their schedules. Or you can even present it this way: oh, I manage communities for a living, but with my expertise in managing communities, I'm also able to help people manage their time and schedules. So I basically bring my expertise in managing communities to a personal level, right? And that's one way to talk about it, right? Instead of coming and saying, "Oh, I am Awele, I am a community manager." Now, the word community manager for for 8 people might mean 8 different things. But when you come and say, "I am Awele, I manage communities," now, one thing that it gives them is, oh, she manages communities. Now, what rings in their head is all the 8 meanings of what a community might mean for them. But then you say that, oh, with my expertise in community management, I've been able to help people manage their time and resources on a personal level. Now, you've taken your wide um, that wide description and you've narrowed it down to each of those 8 individuals, and you've not said something different to 8 of them. But what it would mean for 8 of them is, oh, if one of them is a pilot, he's going to think, oh, how can Awele help me manage my time as a pilot? Okay, my resources. I have um, I have to visit like 2 countries in the next 3 days, and I have goods I would want to transport. Or maybe I really would know a way that I would be able to transport these goods. That's you bringing community management to an individual skill, which is personal management, right? But you not define it as personal assistance, right? But in that sentence, you have not mentioned community management and you've not mentioned a personal assistant or a virtual assistant, but you've actually sold your skill and expertise as a community manager and a personal or a virtual assistant. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I like how you put it, where you said I manage communities for a living, and I also help people manage their time and resources on a personal level as a personal assistant. But how do I fit in, or how do we fit in being a fashion stylist in what you just said now?
So when you look at this scenario again, let's use the pilot. When you manage let's say the pilot now says, "Oh, Awile, that's very impressive. Can we talk?" And then you begin to talk with him. Now, as I said before, you have to find one perception that you would project to the forefront. Cristiano Ronaldo projects football, right? But he has other interests. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie projects the fact that she's an author and a linguist, and yes, she's an author, and that's what people know her. But she has other things that she does. She's a public speaker, and she's even a titled chief in her village, right? So um, um, Professor Yemi Osibanjo is the vice president of was the vice president of Nigeria. He's a professor and he's also a pastor. But at the forefront, people know him more the fact that he is a professor and he was the vice president of Nigeria. But he has other interests, right? He's a member of the Commonwealth team and he has other interests. So find one thing that you would make your dominant narrative, and then that is what you can call that a conversation starter. Now back to the scenario of the pilot. You now have a conversation with the pilot. I am helping him manage his resources, and one of the things you can also pitch to him and say, "Oh, for this business that you want to do, what if you carry a change of clothes to these two cities, and in the time you'd have to maybe settle before your next flight back, you dress like this and go talk about your business here, XYZ." So now you have access to his schedule, you know where he's going to, and now you can now help him you are now helping plan his dressing. Now, if you don't have clothes that might match this particular scenery, I'm a fashion stylist and I can help style. Okay, no, you know, even say I'm a fashion stylist. You can just say, "Oh, I also advise in terms of fashion," or you might not even pitch it like that. You can also just say that, "Oh, sir, I think you could dress this way, this way, this way, and I can help you get the either clothing materials, or I can help recommend places that you can buy this stuff from." So if you own a fashion outfit that has all of these materials, right, you would simply just recommend it to him. Also, I think you can buy from this place. I personally use them. So you can say I personally use them. That is you giving him the fact that, "Oh, you use this product." Two, and I also manage the business. You've not told him that you owned the business, right? But you've told him that you manage the business. And he might get there, he might not even go there himself, right? He will just say, "Oh, Awele, can you handle that part for me?" Or, "Awele, so what should I do?" So at the end of the day, and as I said, which also there's another part that we are not able to touch because of the time. It's how you now go ahead to communicate, or how you go ahead to tell your stories, right? Which I'll use this example. Two people can watch the same movie, but when they're about to narrate the movie to you, one person's own will be more interesting than the other person's own. Why? It's the way the person has told it. Maybe the other person is just saying, this guy just jumped on that building, But the first person is like, "Guy, did you see how that guy jumped?" And he's putting energy. He himself is even um, demonstrating how the jump happened. Maybe he not climbed locker or climbed the table and he jumped and like, as the guy just land for ground, everyone just do bish. Those are the same story, right? But told in two different ways. So you can also work on how you communicate the things that you do. That would also help. In what sense?
Thank you very much. I really, really love your way of putting it, and bringing in the three different careers into a single personal brand. I really, really like that. I also love the fact that you know exactly what a fashion stylist does in Nigeria, because we are quite different from fashion designers who we are constantly mixed up with in Nigeria. So thank you so much, Toluwashe. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, Nigeria also happened there. I lost my communication on my device.
No problem.
There was someone who raised his hand. I don't know if I think Adeleke. Adeleke, do you still have question so that we could wrap up fast?
All right, please, this will be the last question because I have a hard stop for 8 and it's 1 minute to 8
Yes,
already.
yes, of course. Adeleke, do you still have your question? Okay. I think we lost him. I think it's probably maybe what you've said. He's been able to pick up response to his question from there.
Hello, Femi. Oh, lost him too. All right, but I hope that has been an insightful session. Um, like I mentioned to Femi, I might work around putting together a summary of what I talked about today and share with him so that he can share with the uh, people who attended or people who registered for the event. I'll just wait for him before I drop off. So sorry, for one week, any other question? It's very asked to close the meeting. What was any other questions?
Sincere apologies, please. the devil is a liar. It's so strange. Thank you very much, everybody. I think, like I was saying, I think one point I was able to pick up was the fact that you have to have a starter conversation, irrespective of what you do. The starter conversation gives you access to the starter conversation gives you access to whoever you want to meet up. Then you can now use that as an opportunity to explore other avenues, you know, of collaboration, of partnership, and of service offering. So thank you very much, Toluwase. And we'll encourage everybody to please subscribe, follow us on our social media so as to, well, we normally have this series every last Thursday, but because he is an exceptional personality, we had to bring this to Tuesday. So the next one will be held the last Thursday of July. That is 27th of July. So thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Mr. Toluwase. Yeah, please. I dropped
Thank you.
I dropped a feedback link so that for people who are not on our address book, who are not on our list, so they could use that to reach out to us, and we'll keep them up on our database. If you're on our database, we will be able to share with you the resources and other information as we receive them from Mr. Tolu. So thank you very much, and do have a great long weekend. Oh, sorry, do have a great holiday. I think Friday is not included yet.
All right, so thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. If it's possible, Mr. Shion, Mr. Falabi, Mr. David, you could stay behind. Let me end this recording.